Good afternoon, attendees. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sales Playbook Development webinar. This is the first webinar for 2023 coming out of the OPAAT-SWY camp, and it's actually a webinar that we felt sort of encompasses not just one particular challenge, but a number of different challenges. And this is actually coming based on some of the work that we have been doing with clients over the last 3 years, from the sales consultancy side. And what we have decided to do is maybe start here because of the fact that we've recognized that by starting in this particular space, it kind of takes care of everything else. So I will be your host today. My name is Lyndon Braffett, and your co-host will be Lois Ten. And what we're going to do is that we're going to try to make this as concise and direct to the point as possible. So we are now going to be getting into the webinar. All right, so that's my little notification to start the recording. And we are going to kick off with some challenges. Now, I would have just indicated that we've been doing this for the past 5 years. And coming out of the services that we provide, sales enablement has been one of those services. But while we're talking about sales enablement, we are actually looking at a number of different things as it relates to why are some organizations having challenges as it relates to sales? Why are some sales reps doing better than others? Why are some companies in the same industry doing better than others? And also, where are some of these gaps that some companies or some organizations that are experiencing? So in this particular session, I'm going to be talking about 5 of them, right? So the first one is the one that stands out the most, and this is where organizations get in a real hissy fit because they're not hitting the numbers, right? So we have poor sales numbers, and we sometimes attribute this to the economy. We say some things with the market. We talk about certain things with the sales staff, etc., etc. But poor sales performance is something that's very, very difficult to pinpoint if it is not put in a particular format for everyone to be able to understand. And one of the things that I've seen that contributes to poor sales performance is that there's sometimes no real way to really measure and track sales performance. All right, so low targets is the things that companies do as it relates to now trying to resolve low target issues, which should, of course, they will invest in sales training, they may invest in other initiatives, marketing spend, etc., etc., but not always having a true handle or understanding as to why they're experiencing low sales numbers, right? So this is one. So here's an example. While doing some consultation with a company, this company was in a B2B space coming out of Guyana. We asked the sales reps, how often do you hit your targets? Now, if it is that we're looking at this, this means that this organization is never hitting their targets at any particular time, because you have some sales reps hitting targets once a quarter, some sales reps hitting it twice a year, every other month, and you only have maybe 1% of this entire team that's hitting targets on a monthly basis. We even had one person indicate to us, if you look at the purple, it says, I'm not sure. All right. So again, that's a big factor as it relates to sales performance. The other one is there's a very old sales structure that some companies are trying to work with. And again, we do have instances where we have family-oriented companies. They're doing exceptionally well in terms of being consistent and still present in the business world. And yes, they may still be doing a lot of good business, but they're also recognizing that there's some attrition. They're losing certain areas as it relates to revenue. We're also seeing this in some modern organizations, some tech-based companies, insurance companies, automotive dealerships, etc., because there is no or very old sales structure. The foundation has not been rebuilt. So there's a number of things that's happening where organizations are just working with the same thing. And I know that we like to talk about how long we have been in business, but sometimes the business model at that time is not the same business model today, because a number of different things are changing. And I wouldn't have to indicate as to what some of those changes are, because we all know and we all live in the modern era now in 2023. So we know what some of those changes are. Another one is the way that success is measured is very unclear. And let me illustrate that by this example. So when we ask sales reps, what are your most important KPIs? The team and themselves gave varying responses as to what is a KPI that's important to them. Now, again, this comes from not having a clear objective set with your team. So to different sales reps, well, for me, it's making calls, and for maybe the manager, it might be something else. But how do we go about achieving, because remember, we started off with poor sales performance. So how do we go about achieving good sales performance if people are not even sure what is the main thing that they're supposed to? It's like having a batsman not focusing on improving his batting skills because his role is supposed to be to make runs. So how do we know, how can a sales representative with unclear sales KPIs work towards achieving anything if they don't know what the objective is that's in front of them, right? This ties into little or no coaching, right? So the fourth one ties into the third one, and of course, everything else kind of filters back into that. Now, it's the sales manager's responsibility to set that culture, to set the structure and everything else that's happening within the organization. So we have also seen that there's not much coaching happening within the organization. So with that, you tend to find that there are some sales reps who they're not really sure, as to what needs to be done. Plus, they are getting no guidance. They don't have the right support as it relates to going about achieving those sales goals because they don't know sometimes as to who they should be going to. So, right. So when it comes to little or no coaching, and even when it comes to the sales managers themselves, because the organization doesn't have a structure, a foundation, something that even a sales manager can build on. So even though we're talking sales playbooks, the sales playbook isn't really for a sales rep alone. The sales playbook is also for everyone that's in the sales department. So we're looking at sales managers as well, excuse me, to be who also need the support from a sales playbook. And the fifth and most important one, sorry, we use this as an example. If we're looking at the type of sales training that some sales representatives have received, again, it's all over the place, right? Now, if it is that you are working with a specific organization in a tech space or in some other B2B or B2C space, then your sales strategy should also be clearly defined, and that should happen as it relates to things like your onboarding, right? And as time goes on, one of the things that should consistently be happening is that your onboarding and your evolution of those sales strategies based upon what's happening in your market should also evolve. So it's not just a matter of where we have one standard way or we have no way of actually approaching sales, but if our customers' behavior is actually changing, then how do we know through the support of our sales managers and coaches, etc., how are they now supporting the reps and building some consistency into the sales structure and the coaching? This also ties into another large problem which we've seen is the recruiting and the onboarding is very inconsistent. All right, so there's no proper structure as it relates to how are we bringing people in, how are we nurturing these people to get them to be the best that they can be within our organization, and also, excuse me, how are we setting them up for success, right? So one of the first things is that even within the sales playbook, it isn't indicating to the let's say the new sales rep or as a guide to HR or as a guide to the sales manager of to the type of individual that we're looking for. Let's say, for instance, if it is that you had a customer base where you were sort of living off of your existing base, but now you want to go after a new base, with those reps who were just account managers, sort of nurturing, be the same reps you need to now go headhunting for new business, because the approach to that sales process, as opposed to the approach of nurturing and growing business in an existing base, are sometimes two totally different bases. How do you now incentivize? Because the incentive for hunters may be very different from the incentive for farmers. How do we understand to let people know, hey, this may be a long sales cycle, so this is the type of work that we need to be putting in at this particular stage to be able to achieve X in the long run. Again, the way that we nurture, the way that we recruit, especially in terms of what you're asking for based on your strategies, is extremely inconsistent. And again, even though we're talking sales playbooks, again, your sales playbook is definitely going to be able to help you achieve those things, right? So there's a number of different impacts, but this is one of the ones I just decided to pull out here. So we're looking at things like revenue loss, low customer success ratings, underperforming sales team and managers by that extent. You have staff sometimes feeling lost because they don't have any guidance, they're not sure what they need to be doing today, etc., etc. And there's a long list of different things that could actually be happening within a sales organization that we have been able to kind of identify because we're working with customers closely and we're seeing certain things, we're hearing certain things, and then there's certain things that it's intuitive to us because of the time that we have actually been working with customers, right? So what's the solution? How is putting together a book with all of this information going to be helpful to my organization? I just need my salespeople to sell, etc. Well, again, if it is that we go back, if there's something that I learned while in business, and it said, if it's not written, then it cannot be managed. And by putting together a sales playbook, your sales playbook is actually a detailed guide outlining the process and outlining the strategies of your organization. If your strategies is going to be changing every year, then your sales playbook can change every year. It's actually a framework that's going to help your team, right? Stay organized, focused, and efficient in a number of different areas. Another benefit of that is that it also helps increase sales by providing a consistent way that you want to go about selling. Who are you selling to? What are the type of people you need to be talking to? What is the frequency of that particular approach? How many meetings you should be having? I mean, insurance companies do it, and they have certain levels of success that they can measure. Why should it be any different in other industries? And again, I believe that when we're talking about certain things like sales, you should not have one organization or one industry using a particular approach as a part to another industry. What should be wise is, a wise thing to do would be taking different things from different industries to make it fit your business. And again, this is where now I could understand if someone has been in an industry for a long period of time, they would not know what another industry is doing or how they approach sales, or how they try to create that level of structure. However, this is kind of where we come in, or that's why these webinars are sometimes important, because it will expose the other things that other industries are doing, and also look at certain things along the lines of best practices, right? The other important thing too is that a sales playbook shouldn't be outdated. So it is a living document within your organization, and the more that you get feedback from your team, the better it will be for you, because of the fact that as things change in your market, as things change in your industry, we always like to say, well, our salespeople are the people who are boots on the ground. Well, then we need to be taking that information from them to put certain things in place so that we can now give them back the right ammunition, right? If we're keeping the boots on the ground analogy from a army or military perspective, then we want to be able to take information from them, intel, and now come back to them with the right strategy, and sometimes outlining those things in playbooks. Again, if we're looking at sports, I love sports. So almost every, and let me not even say almost, every sports team, every club, they all have plays, they all have strategies. So again, why am I seeing sometimes certain managers or some managers not reiterating some of what those strategies are, not doing the necessary coaching to reinforce sales teams or sports teams? They train more than they play games sometimes. Why would that be? And sometimes the training doesn't have to be an external investment. The training could be, or should be, an internal investment in time. So if it is that we have a sales meeting, but maybe every other sales meeting should be some sort of coaching mechanism to help. But all of those things are guided by the playbook. So what makes a playbook? What are the things that actually make up what a playbook should actually look like? So we have here on the left a table of contents, right? But what I'll do is I'll actually give you an example of a playbook that we developed in 2019 for a client, and other little ones that we've been developing along the way, even for ourselves, and the ones that we kind of put it together so we can give customers like a template that they can use a little bit for themselves. And if, of course, if additional support or guidance is needed, then of course they can always reach out to us, right? So this is our first template. This template was for XYZ company. All right. It's a finished template. And what they did is that they actually needed to get some support. It started off as a consultation for helping develop the sales team in terms of the sales approach based upon the things that they were selling, because they are in cybersecurity, but they also sell courses through Microsoft. So they sell some Microsoft licenses, etc., etc. So what we did with them is that when I started to do the work with them, I recognized again the same things. They didn't have the right structure. They were bringing in some new sales reps because they wanted to ramp up for growth. But because it's sort of a solution-based thing, because we didn't have the sales team didn't have a clear understanding as to who should be the people that's in front of that they should be reaching out to on a consistent basis. And then what are some of the things that you should say? I felt that this would have been the most valuable thing to leave with them, because of the fact that, again, if you're bringing in new sales staff, even if you have the existing sales team, then you want to have a framework like this for the team to always work with. All right, so one of the first things that we spoke about within it, just the normal things in terms of the organization's vision, mission, purpose, and of course, the growth of the employee, I always believe is important, because again, you want to be able to bring people in so that your people will grow. And as your people grow, your organization should be growing as well. All right. The other thing that we took some time to do was really break down what the value proposition of said organization was. Right now, if it is that you've been onto a number of webinars with us, you know that we talk about value proposition from 5 categories: product, productivity, profitability, image, convenience, and experience. And what we did is that we helped them break down what this is. So there was some training involved so that they can understand what the value prop is based upon what they are selling. And we outlined it here in the playbook. The other one too, so if you'll notice here, we had what the products were, then we had what of a description of the product. And then coming out of that, we have what the value proposition of the said product and is, and also if there were more products to come in to come on stream, then they already had the training as to how to go about thinking of what the value prop is, and most importantly, who they should be selling to. So when we started to ask the question as to, okay, tell us exactly as to who are the people you try to reach out to. So they said they try to reach out to IT managers, network administrators. We have human resource. I think there's an operations person in here as well. All right. The other thing too is that we needed to ask them, well, tell us a little bit about those individuals. And what we recognized that they didn't know much. They just knew that they needed to call an IT manager and they would pitch in the IT manager. But they didn't know that the IT manager's roles and responsibilities were to achieve certain things, right? And what skills were actually needed for the IT manager. So again, based upon what is it that you are selling, how can you now position your stuff to the IT manager? So based upon his or her duties. And this is something that I started to talk about recently, and I'll maybe share this as a resource after the webinar, is that sometimes we have to now also not just look at the individuals and the organization and the industry, but we have to also study what has been the financial performance of the organization. What is the roles and responsibilities and KPIs of the person that you are actually trying to speak to? Because once you understand what those things are, you have a better appreciation of creating a better profile and having a better conversation and sending out the right side of sort of sales templates. So we really went deep in terms of how do we now create the right type of buyer persona. And this is just an example as to how we went about doing that. So they can now read as to what their buying persona is, even before they make the call. And after a while, of course, I'm pretty sure they will have a better understanding as to they wouldn't always have to come back to this, but it's here if there's a new rep, or if it is that they just want to refresh themselves, or they feel as though they want to make changes. All right. The other thing which is most important too is that we then mapped out what is the sales process. And we looked at the sales process in 2 ways. We looked at the sales process as to what is this organization's process from when they first came in. So sorry, when you understand what your products and services are, then all the way in terms of reaching out to someone. And this here is a very high level way of doing the sales process. I'll show you in the template as to another way that we actually look at the sales process and help customers map that out, right? So this goes from all the way into step 1 all the way to step 10. Now, some organizations may have 6 steps, some might have 4 steps, some might have 20 steps. But at the end of the day, understanding what those steps are, and if it is that you pay attention to what each one says in some of the text, and there are certain things that I have there as notes, there are specific things like next steps, action items, what needs to be done, etc., etc. Why is this step important? But again, this comes from the organization. It is a detailed guide and framework as to how we go about doing business, right? Now we're matching your sales process to your buying process. So we've sort of flipped it on its head now and say, okay, this is how you sell, but tell us now how your customer buys, which again, too, is another exercise because it's external, similar to the one we did with the ideal customer profile, because a lot of organizations, they don't always pay attention to what is the journey that customer takes. So we did speak about how the customer goes through a needs thing, and sometimes those needs could be latent, or sometimes those needs could be immediate, but it's all depending on where is your customer in their journey, whether you're selling to individuals or you're selling to an organization. It's important to understand those things. Where are they doing their research? If it is that they're looking for a demo, what is it that they actually want to see in the demo? Then from there, how they go about making commitments. Do you have to speak to 4 and 5 people based upon the product or service or solution that you're selling? Or is it just one person that has the autonomy to be able to make a decision? Again, this all comes back to the product or service, whether you're B2B or B2C. And after they purchase, how do they evaluate to say, well, okay, yeah, we are happy with the decision that we actually made. Now, if it is that we have to align that top piece with the bottom piece, we understand now that XYZ company, your sales process has to match your buying process. So you need to be doing certain levels of prospecting. Again, prospecting now in 2023 is very different from how most of us may have started off understanding prospecting. So you have lead gen strategies, you have marketing initiatives, you have outreach, you have social selling. All of those things are relevant. But then at the same time, when the customer is doing the research, is really understanding to how do you want to investigate, how do you want to put content out, etc., to now capture the interest of said customer. Then, of course, when it is that they're doing their demo, how are you presenting that solution? Are you giving them a demo? This is a mistake that I see many people make. They do a full demo, but the customer only really wants to see 2 things, right? But that should have been picked up in your investigation stage. And in anything else that you decide to show the customer is gravy, but the most important thing is that you focus on 2 things that happens. And I actually remember seeing somebody from Microsoft make that mistake in front of me, right? We went to sell copiers, and they were there at the same time to sell their Microsoft solution to a government ministry. And they went first, and they took maybe 75 minutes talking about everything. And while I was listening to that guy, I said, I'm not going to make this mistake, because he actually don't take away my time. So I had to be very crafty in terms of the time that I had to sell. And I just asked the gentleman, what are the 2 things your department needs to have resolved, or you'll find you spend a lot of time wasting? And he said those 2 things, and I just focused on those 2 things. We were able to get the business in 2 months' time. I can't speak for the Microsoft rep. Maybe they did get the business, or maybe not. But because my time was taken up by listening to this guy making a overblown presentation, I just had to be very, very specific on what are the 2 things that's important to you right now. And when the person explained what those are, I just showed him, this is how you go about doing it. All right. From there, you want to work along the lines of when the customer is in that commitment stage of making a decision, you want to reassure them. Right, and all of this comes as part of your training as well. So remember, before, when we talk about the sales managers or the sales leaders not always having the best way to coach, even for a sales manager, this is one of the best ways to now say, okay, well, when your customer is in this particular stage, you want to now be able to now guide and nurture them, because sometimes people can be apprehensive based upon the money that they have to spend for this solution. So now, how do you now, like a therapist, reassure them that they are making the right decision, and they will be able to receive these results coming out at the end of it because you're choosing us, right? And then at the same time, what nurturing strategies are you using to help the customer evaluate and still feel comfortable and not regret? So again, we just spoke a lot about the buying process and aligning that to the sales process. Excuse me. But I just kind of went into that because I felt it was extremely important to explain as to why that is important. All right. You also want to indicate again, based upon the type of business, are we going to be consultative or are we going to be product and box pushers? Again, very, very important. And we just did an alignment to indicate the difference between the two. And here now, this is where you get into the sales questions. Right. So again, I can come up with all the sales questions. The consultant can come up with all the sales questions in the world. However, these sales questions can really come from your sales team. So asking your sales team, what are some of your top objections that you get? What are some of the things that people ask about your product? And then you build this out so that because if they're hearing it from different colleagues, they can all come up with similar or very different answers, but it's all now ammunition for them to be a lot better in the field. And sometimes it's not that people always need sales training. Sometimes they just don't have the confidence. They just don't know how to answer the question the right way, which all factors into the training. It doesn't always have to be external. It could also be very internal as well. All right. So we sort of broke out things as to how to go about finding who the budget holder is, determining if what's the size of the budget, like what's the range, understanding things like metrics, right? And all of these things are going to be part of your template and how to actually go for the close, right? Going beyond that now, remember we spoke about KPIs. Remember I showed the example where people had different understanding as to what the KPI is. Well, this is how you're actually going to be measured. So we put this in here because we want people to understand your metric is this. What we don't have in there is, I think we don't have a commission structure in here, but commission structure should be placed in your playbook as well, because people want to understand that, well, if I do this amount in terms of my performance, then this is what I would be receiving. Once that is clear, then there's no ambiguity about commissions, and sometimes that ambiguity is always create more problems for an organization and a sales manager. Right? Projected sales activities, outlining it. It doesn't have to be to the T, but if it is that you are saying, hey, if you do these specific activities in these volumes, then you should be able to receive these results. Anything less, we know that you're not going to get it. What is not in here is something that we've also been working on developing. We did a webinar later part of last year that spoke about understanding your sales numbers. And that broke down things like closing ratio. It broke out things like sales cycles. So again, if you know that your sales cycle is 3 months, then if whatever you're trying to close in March should have started in January. If you did no business in February, is because you didn't have a good prospecting period in December. We know people like to take December off. So again, based upon your sales cycles, providing that you are actively tracking these things, you can now have a better understanding of your sales plays. What do we do at this particular time? What is it that we want to move, etc., etc. All right. So in this instance, this was the end of this particular playbook, but I want to show you another one, right, as the template. All right. So with the template, and I'm just going to kind of skip down because this carries a number of different things. These are just examples. And with this for us, within our templates, we have connections to our other resources. That's there as well. Right. So the other part of it was, so this is when I spoke about developing the sales process for the customer. This is another way that you can develop the sales process, where you could actually now outline, describe different things, who's involved, which departments are going to be doing what is the sales approach you want to take, what is the objective, and what is the next steps. And if you are using a CRM, and in this instance, for us, it's HubSpot. Sorry, it says resume share. My apologies. Didn't realize it stopped sharing. Right, so I just want to confirm that you guys are seeing. I just want to confirm that you all are seeing the screen. You can just type yes down to the bottom. All right. So this is another way that we actually go about breaking out the sales process. Right. So, and if this one is a little too high level, then we could actually now be a little bit more granular and have the respective HubSpot tools or Salesforce tools tied in to what your rules and objectives are. Right. As we go forward here too, we're also looking at well, this breaks down the field activity. I think there's something else down to the bottom. Prospecting strategies. What other prospecting strategies do you want to use? Now, everything that we have in the template doesn't necessarily have to make a part of your playbook, but we've recognized that sometimes the more information that you have, the better it is. Or you can now think of incorporating it, but it's really up to the organization as to what exactly you want to be able to put in. So we have sales tools. What tech stack, what different tools do you want to use? How do you want to use those tools? In this instance, we have things like Vidya, Proposify, Canva, right? Again, keeping it open for sales reps to understand where they can go about doing certain things, where they can actually go about finding these resources, etc. How they can actually now use case studies in terms of having your sales collateral is extremely important. And what sales collateral you want to be able to use, and where could they be used at different stages of the sales process. Again, is in the beginning, setting this up is always going to seem lengthy. It's going to seem as though there's a lot of work, but once you have it set and you are consistently using it, you will definitely always see the value coming out of it, because you now have something that you can reference. It even makes the process of onboarding a new sales rep easier, because this is one of the first things that they're going to be handed, right? So it's not just a matter of giving them the laptop and etc., but you're actually giving them a resource that they can actually read through. And it's now, as again, when we went back to the beginning, it said it's a guided framework, right, for sales reps to use. And this is what you would want to have your sales reps, especially your new ones, becoming very familiar with when it comes to, learning the business of the organization. Yes, we would do ride-alongs. Yes, they will have product training sessions. But when they have something that they can come back to and study, then this is exactly what they're going to be using. All right. So this is kind of the end of this this particular framework. Is there one more? I think I may have. All right, now it's not there. So yeah, so that was the example as it relates to the one completed sales playbook that we did for our client, and then the template that we use is something that we keep developing for ourselves as well, right? In terms of conversations, and a lot of some of the templates and examples, we actually put them into our CRM, which is HubSpot. But this, folks, is where I just really wanted to lay the example down as it relates to why sales playbooks are so important. All right. And what we will be doing, because there's a series of things that's coming up, kind of tying this in, because this year we're looking at we are focusing on the top of the sales funnel, or the top and the middle of the sales funnel, because trying to close a customer sometimes is because we started bad in the first place. All right. So especially in sales, if you don't start the right way, you're going to find, yes, you may close the deal, but it may take a lot more work to close the opportunity, because we're not starting in a very comfortable space. And we recognize, because certain people don't have the right tools and resources, we are trying to develop and put those things together in different ways. So by paying attention to the blogs that we put out, the blogs are going to be very specific to top of funnel. It's going to be top and middle of funnel. You're going to have more resources like these, and so we're going to be sharing the landing page post webinar with you all, so you can actually go and download your template. We will have this recording available so that you can actually take a look at this again. And what we may also do is that we may also allot maybe at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just to guide anyone who's downloaded the webinar or downloaded the template, just to kind of walk them through certain things. And if of course you do require the additional services, then you will have the ability to, maybe engage with us. We'll understand exactly what your needs are, and we go and we build from there. All right. So that's kind of the end of the webinar, but I'm going to go into a little bit of a what's next. So in April, we are going to be having our Hug for Higher Education. We are continuing the drive to help the higher education industry kind of improve on certain things. We do have one or two other industries that we have in mind as well. We will have some mini workshops coming up in May in terms of sales playbook developments as well. Sales development courses, which will tie into certain things along the lines of training. Customer profiles. Again, it's an exercise that we are going to be working on individually with customers. And as I said, we have a few more things that's coming down the pipeline for as it relates to our workshops and webinars and events. All right, so I'm not sure if there are any additional questions, but I would like to thank you all for attending. I think we have a question here. Is the webinar recorded? Yes, it is, Roderick. And I will be sending this out to the attendees at the end so that they will have the ability of reviewing it accordingly. All right, so coming out of this, I would like to say thank you for attending and giving us your time. Also, another thing that we're going to be doing out of the webinars is that we're going to be keeping the webinars short and sweet. All right, so we want to stay within a 30-minute time frame unless there are specific questions. So we're going to call this the end of the session for today, and we look forward to hosting you all in more upcoming sessions in the future. All right, guys, take care.